Okay, good morning, everyone. Christine, everybody can hear me? Okay?
Yes.
Dan.
Okay, great. I want to take a minute to welcome everyone to the CIBS Evolution of Retail panel discussion. My name is Dan Weiner. I'm the president of CIBS, and we are very excited to bring you this program today. First of all, I really want to thank our board, our entire board, for all the hard work they put into putting this together. A lot goes into the back end of these programs, especially nowadays. Everything is virtual, so there's a lot of coordination, marketing, and I want to thank everybody for their time and effort, especially Christine Majid, our administrator. We really appreciate all that you do for us, not only on this panel, but everything you do for CIBS. So thank you very much. I want to thank all of our panelists for their time today. We've assembled a distinguished panel, and I'm really excited about the subject matter. You're going to meet them in a minute when I introduce Dave Panetta. But in the meantime, I'd like to just discuss a few of our upcoming events. And firstly, I want to thank the sponsors by name. We had to pay Dave Levitin a lot of money today to join us, so it wouldn't be possible without the help of the sponsors. Obviously, Dave, I'm joking around, but I wanted to thank the sponsors by name. So firstly, ACC Real Estate Services, Advantage Title, Ambrosino Consultant Corporation, Bank of America Merrill Lynch, Sir Tillman Ballin Attorneys. We have CoStar Group. We have a brand new sponsor, City National Bank. Thank you for joining. We appreciate it very much. Dime Bank, Farrell Fritz Attorneys, FTD Firm Advantage for Chelly, Deegan, Tirana, Hendrickson, Jovia Financial Credit Union, Merit Environmental Consulting Corp., Milvato Property Group, Regis, Rivkin Radler, Attorneys at Law, Ruskin Moscow Faltacek, PC, Counselors at Law, RXR, Son Ward, also a new sponsor, and Michael Son is a panelist today, so thank you very much.
Most welcome.
The Levine Organization, Developers, Owners, Managers, and Waldner's Furniture Technology Service. Just want to discuss some of our upcoming events. We've had a tremendous amount of success reintroducing our Lunch and Learn, and that's all virtual now. We've had a really great turnout. The first two were on subleases, and we did a one on the 1031 exchange. And what we like to do is keep all the information very relevant and up to date. So we have two new ones coming up on the calendar. On May 13th, we have a Lunch and Learn introducing and understanding the Nassau County IDA, the new Nassau County IDA, and we'll get a sneak preview of their new branding. And then, so we're excited about that. And also on May 26th, we have a Lunch and Learn for unleashing the power of LinkedIn. I think now more than ever, it's important to stay in front of our clients, and we're gonna teach everybody how to become LinkedIn ninjas, as some people like to call it. Then June 1st, our annual golf outing is back. It's been 9 months or 8.5 months, and we're really excited. June 1st, we'll all be seeing each other in person again. So John LaRufa always does a fantastic job on the golf outing, and this year will be no exception. I think we're sold out. I didn't get a chance to talk to John before the event, but I believe we are sold out. So
it's definitely sold out.
Definitely sold out. Okay. Thanks, Dave. So June 1st, the annual golf outing. And last but not least, thanks to Dave Levitin, who just solidified the Crest Hollow Country Club, we are going to bring back our very popular summer event on August 18th. And we're really excited about that. I believe that you will be required to have either a vaccination card or a negative COVID test, Christine, right? That's I believe that's what the venue will require.
Correct.
Yeah. So, but we're out there, and we're going to be live in person, and it's about time. So That's going to happen on August 18th, where we're looking to have a great casual style summer party with a really good live band. So with that, I want to thank everybody again, and I want to introduce the executive managing director of Cushman & Wakefield, and also our only non-NCTT, our non-consecutive two-term president. And I won't mention the years, Dave. Dave Panetta. So thank you guys very much.
All right, thank you, Dan. Yeah, CIBS has been around since 1992. We were here to try to, work on ethics, collaboration, education, and that's part of what this speaker series here is, as well. And with this topic, the evolution of retail, we've assembled top professionals in their field covering development, law, brokerage, and government. So we have Brad Blumenfeld, he's principal of Blumenfeld Development Group. Steve Gilman, partner and broker at TSCG. Dave Leviton, managing director, Jones Lang LaSalle. And Supervisor Ed Romaine, supervisor the town of Brookhaven. And Michael Son, managing member of Son Ward Law. Thank you all for joining us. We have a pretty intense program. Retail is really the only sector in the commercial real estate that everybody touches, right? Everybody doesn't touch industrial buildings, but everybody touches retail. So it's a very important component of the Long Island makeup. There's been a significant changes pre-COVID, now during COVID, and we're going to take a look at what we're seeing will stay with us and some changes going forward. So for those in the audience that are looking to ask a question, there's two ways to do that. One is through chat on the bottom of your screen, and the other is through question and answer through the bottom of the screen. So I will look at those questions, and to the extent that they're relevant to the conversation, we will try to address them, not even necessarily waiting to the end, but trying to address them when appropriate. So again, thank you. And we're going to start. So this is the evolution of retail. So we're not going to go back to the 1920s, but we're going to go pre-COVID. We have Tesla coming in and selling cars in the mall, right? So that's the first time that's happened. Instead of taking taxis, you had Uber, newer cars, a phone app driven, 4 minutes away, 3 minutes away, 2 minutes away. Movie theaters used to be able to get there. You have to get there 45 minutes early to get a good seat. And now you can get there 20 minutes late and miss all the commercials and, the Coca-Cola commercials. So those are some changes. And then on the flip side, we've had Kmart, Sears go out, Sports Authority, which I know a lot of people love, went out. Even Bed Bath Beyond. For a guy, I used to like shopping there. Another casualty. So can someone just pick up on, what sort of led to the advent of some of these, market disruptors, talking Uber, Tesla, and also sort of like address why some of these companies, aren't making it?
Yeah, I'm happy to pick that up, David. Look, I think that the one thing that is constant is change is constant, right? So as technology is picked up over the years and technology has improved, all the things you mentioned were not able to happen without improvements in technology. So, they didn't have iPhones, they didn't have apps. You weren't able to reserve a seat without calling someone. You have OpenTable, where you used to need to call 10 different restaurants to make a reservation. Now you're able just to go on an app, you know, within 2 seconds. So I think the one thing that's constant has changed, and it's all been to the betterment of the consumer. The consumer has so many more options now, and things are so much more convenient. And the companies that you mentioned that didn't survive are the ones that weren't able to adapt and implement new technology. And, you know, they suffered as a result. So I think all the ones that are the winners, the ones that are able to adapt to the technology and give the consumer what they need.
All right, good. You know, Sears, for example, I spoke about this to a couple of you. Sears was a company around for 175 years, right? Their beginning probably decade, there were no bricks and mortar. It was a catalog that they bailed out, and either you responded by mail or you used the phone, called them and ordered. And with the advent of, you know, online purchasing, Sears was not able to respond to that. And even though they sort of wrote the book about this 175 years ago, how are these big companies, it just is sort of like amazing a little bit, how are they not being able to turn the corner, you know, quick enough to sort of compete in today's, you know, in today's market? It just, that seems, it just seems crazy to me.
It would almost be as if they had a blind eye. And really, people in business, one of the things that they have to look at is what's the future going to look like. And I mean, the future happens every day. And I guess they did not see this coming. But the pandemic accelerated that tremendously. Brick and mortar is the thing of the past. I mean, I come to work every day and I come up Old Medford Road, which is off Horse Block. And there is a parade of about 20 to 30 vehicles as I'm passing, of brown vehicles called UPS, because their headquarters is on Horse Block Road in Farmingville. And it just says something that people have ordered all these things online. I mean, that the change, looking at FedEx, UPS, looking at Amazon, it should be evident that brick and mortar is not the only thing. And we had a conversation about a car dealer that kept on saying he wanted to locate near the expressway and talked about a shopping center that had a vacant Kmart. And we said, no, no, no. And then we finally said, you know what? If you want to put your showroom there and store your cars elsewhere and store your service and auto repair elsewhere, we consider it. So the light bulb went off. It's going off in government too, that we have to be willing to change. And our zoning and other restrictions have to change to help retail survive.
Right, right. You know, I remember, you know, we were talking pre-COVID, the experiential retail center, and you guys remember Incredible Universe over in Mitchell Field? You go there for, you know, for lunch, you spend 2 hours in there playing with everything, and more times than not, you bought stuff. Or there was that sports store, Galen's. They were a Dick's Sport over a couple of locations. They had the rock climbing wall, and, you know, those were tests for the experiential aspect. I think they were successes, but for some reason they kind of went away as well. We've gone through a big change. I remember back in the 1990s, you know, where Roosevelt Field added a second level. I know Walt Whitman Mall in Huntington, you know, did a big renovation. Some of the other malls, and the whole mantra was the malls were killing the downtown. And then you got 2010 and beyond. You know, after we were doing the transit-oriented development, multifamily construction, and the reverse was happening. The downtowns were killing the malls. So retail, you know, is sort of like an ebb and flow, and it's always in flux and needing to reinvent itself. And there's supervisors, you were mentioning, land use is generally very, rigid the way that it's written. There's a master plan that, maybe was done, started 20 years ago, maybe accepted 10 years ago. And it's not necessarily a living document, but, so Supervisor, can you talk a little bit about some of the centers and what you were seeing happening, 7 years ago, 10 years ago, where you were observing, now you're supervisor. I remember you reached out to our mutual friend of ours, Mitch Pally, and you were considering doing some zone changes, I think when you first got into office, but you didn't want to just make a zone change and do it across all of Brookhaven and see how it works out. You wanted some examples. So that was very, showing a lot of thought leadership for a municipality. Tell us how you got to that and, how you were moving forward with that.
Well, I would say Brookhaven has its examples of bad planning. Things didn't work out the way people expected. They made decisions back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, even in the 80s and 90s that were based on one location, and they would do it piecemeal. And some of the things, particularly strip shopping centers along our major highways, that doesn't lend to a community. That's actually something that I'm not in favor of. And we haven't had many strip shopping centers. I've been here almost 9 years since I've been here. But for example, we have a shopping center. I think I mentioned it to you. You all know Mr. Stoller. He owns a shopping center. It was built in 1957 in Port Jeff Station. It's about 11 acres, and there's vacancies in there. And we're looking at that. It came to me, and I said, you know what? We consider a mixed. If you want to take the whole shopping center down and build multifamily housing, some retail, and maybe a food court or something of that nature. And he said, absolutely. And we sat down, and he's actually the first builder that has spoken with in this town that's building with steel, which is, that's when I knew he was serious. So that is going to be done. And we have said, we've given the green light on that one. So that shopping center is coming down. It's going to be, and there's enough density for him to make the money he needs to make.
Right.
Same thing in East Patchogue. Anyone knows the catering facility, Mediterranean Manor, that's coming down. And again, mixed use, some retail, a lot of housing, enough density so that the developer, which is Reckler in this case, can make some money. But it's going to change. And by the way, both of these have the support of the local civics. In East Patchogue, it's Focus East Patchogue. In Port Jeff, it's the Port Jefferson Station Terryville Civic Association. So I think engaging people, I think they understand. You get people involved in civic about their community. They want it to look nice. They can understand some of the things that why people, there's investment versus disinvestment. And if you don't have zoning codes that encourage investment and change, your town is going to fall behind. Brookhaven has been in that position. I want to move it forward. We're looking at other areas of Brookhaven town where we're willing to give incentive. There are multifamily housing for the first time going up in North Bellport. And the guy that's developing it just came to me and said, and he was doing about 12 to an acre next to the Boys and Girls Club. Came to me and said, hey, I want to do 20 to an acre, and I'll take these areas along Montauk Highway, and North Bellport has some challenges. And we said, you know what? Normally not in favor of that type of density, but in this case, we want this community to start coming back and change the dynamics and the demographics of this community. And we're going to give you that. It's right next to the Bellport train station. We're looking at a tremendous opportunity for someone to come in and change Mastic Beach, which has always had tremendous potential. So we want to change what's happening in Brookhaven. And we're willing to sit with developers and listen to their story, just like we were willing to sit with the car dealers. You want to be in the Kmart on North Ocean Avenue here, right north of the expressway, great. You can have your showroom there. Don't put all your cars, your 100 cars that you have with you in your repair shop. So we're willing to have a discussion to reimagine what Brookhaven could look like. And we understand one thing. The developer is putting his money at risk and those of his investors. We want to ensure that people make money. I know there's a lot of people in government that don't like to see people make money. I love to see people make money because that's what drives this economy and what will drive change and what will drive investment.
Right. Yeah.
David, if I could follow up, I think the supervisor has really focused on a very important point in terms of the relationship of retail and housing. From what I'm seeing and reading about, not just in New York, but elsewhere in the country, there is a very close relationship between providing new housing opportunities, whether in a TOD type development, a mixed use development, or in other areas that have not traditionally been looked on for housing, such as along major transit corridors, where providing housing opportunities will drive new retail and commercial opportunities. So for instance, take some of our major east-west or north-south corridors with strip centers, such as the supervisor mentioned, and reimagine them with mixed-use buildings along those major arteries, where instead of a sea of parking in the front, the parking is in the back, the building is closer to the roadway. You allow higher buildings with larger storefront windows and larger residential windows above to create a very inviting space. And you combine housing opportunities with new retail and commercial and maybe some smaller park-like areas on that kind of development. That's a new and unique type of zoning that actually is being put in place in some Midwestern communities. And I think it would go very well here. If you drive along, say, in Nassau County, which I'm more familiar with, but same in Suffolk, if you drive along Hillside Avenue, Jericho Turnpike, Northern Boulevard, even on the great Americana area, in Manhasset, you've got Lord and Taylor closed now. You've got other storefronts totally vacant. Now something has to bring those back, and I think it's foresight if we can craft some new land use that allows a mix of those uses along the major arteries. I also think that the TOD developments are great drivers of retail and commerce. And I think if we all can get creative about that and consider ways to make these applications come about and be reviewed and approved or not approved in a shorter time frame, everybody's going to benefit. So I absolutely endorse what the supervisor is saying.
Yeah, in order of preference, developers like a yes first, second a no, third a maybe. They don't want maybe to be the second choice where they're hanging out for years and years and then eventually get a no.
But that's true. But the sooner you get an answer, yes, no, or maybe, there's certainty in the marketplace, and yeah. I think that's very important for everybody.
Certainty is critical. I am blessed with the town board that I can say we almost unanimously agree on most of the things. And I know other town boards, it's not the same. And the political composition of a community, and I just lucked out with the people I'm serving with. They're really great people. But you make an excellent point, Michael, because I got to tell you, I've seen towns that have split, and when you come in front of them for a decision, you're not getting a decision. And I know time is money, and certainty is absolutely critical to redevelop it. I mean, you saw the certainty with the town of Brookhaven with Ronkonkoma Hub, and we are extremely supportive of that, and that's moving forward.
You know, the decisions, you know, when getting town officials, planning, zoning, town board, you know, the biggest decision you guys make is probably your budget, number one. Number two, it's probably real estate. And, you know, it almost seems like there should be some sort of a criteria of expertise in those top two, because it's hard to get people to understand, and you get pressure from, you know, from the residents who also don't necessarily understand, you know, the cause and effect of taxes, what's going on with the schools and the community, the roads. You know, that all takes money to, you know, to keep going. So it's a tough juggling, you know, point there. So Steve, the tenants that we're gonna go into, what centers we're doing better, like physically, were there centers, I think we were discussing that centers that, you know, reinvested money back into their CapEx and put on new facades and redid parking. But, you know, that and other things, is there other things that made these retail centers more competitive staying retail?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious that the better properties, the A properties, if you will, have stood up better than the B and C stuff. The stuff in Coram, you know, off Middle Country Road or 25 or whatever, struggled. The supermarket anchors have been the drivers of everything. Anything that's new development or redevelopment has probably had a supermarket or a TJ Maxx or a Marshall's anchor show up. That's, you know, that's what's making everything work here. And the rest of it comes down probably to food. And the Blumenfelds actually did a project on 110, which I think Brad and company did a really good job with. They did a little strip center there that got the floor and decor, but it's the strip center part that's the most interesting to me. They set it up with a bunch of internal end caps, if you will, you know, so it makes it look sexy, it's inviting, it makes the retailers want to be there, it makes customers want to go. And I think that's, you know, that's sort of the evolution of the physical part of retail. It's going to be more stuff like that. As the supervisor pointed out, that some of the stuff is going to get knocked down and redeveloped. I think you're going to see some of these strip centers are going to get, the middle of it's going to get knocked down. There's going to be a drive-through on maybe on two sides. There's going to be a host of food guys, because that's what it is. People aren't going shopping. The little local clothing guy is not going to, you know, it's not what we're doing there. Those are Amazon purchases now. So
Yeah.
it's grocery and big, you know, when they're good big boxes, the Home Depots, Costco's, and stuff like that in the world.
So in some of the, let's talk about the downtowns a little bit. Some of the downtowns I remember 10, 15 years ago, the, you know, corner of Main and Main was $30 triple net. And then Starbucks came in, and Wells Fargo came in, and TD Bank came in, and a bunch of these guys, and the number jumped from 30 to $65 of triple net.
Yeah.
Are we going to see a reset back to that sort of more of the mom and pop versus, you know, like the big joke with Starbucks is, you know, Starbucks just opened up in the Starbucks down the street. You know, they have Starbucks every couple of blocks. Are we going to see a reset, you think, in the retail rents?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They're, you know, like exactly what you said of what happened. So people or smaller businesses, look, if retail on a national level isn't that old, you know, historically, like it really started blossoming in the early 90s. And prior to that, it was really fragmented. You know, there were regional or local players. There wasn't this big consolidation. And then that big consolidation started driving rents and made, you know, like it consolidated all the back office. It made people be able to buy better, and that afforded them the ability to pay higher rents. And now with sort of the Amazon effect and another wave of consolidation, they all need to compete. Like Steve said, a lot of the soft goods aren't getting bought at the local level as much. You can just go on your phone and order something and it's there tomorrow, or even today with Amazon. And the Walmarts are getting into that same day, next day delivery as well. So the consequence is the smaller people can't compete. And now, certainly with the pandemic, as the supervisor said, everything got accelerated in terms of pushing that COVID. COVID pushed all the acceleration onto e-commerce. So a lot of the small shops weren't able to survive. And now people are going to backfill that space eventually. They're going to need to go in there, but in order to do it, they need to make money, and they can't make money at the $150, $200 rents. They're going to backfill it where they are comfortable to make money at, the $30 rents that you mentioned. But there'll still be a demand, but it's going to be lower, service businesses, a haircutter, a tailor, shoemaker, all those things still need, you can't do those things on the internet.
David, you picked an interesting one though, the hair cutter, which makes up like every downtown in America. We see hundreds of them. Even something that business has changed so much in the last 2 years. You've got all these salon suites and Phoenix salons, and they open up their little real estate companies, and all the salon haircutters and nail people work in the salon suites. They rent their little chair. Now, who needs the storefront on Main Street in Huntington, or in Village of Rockville Center, or pick a place? Those guys aren't there anymore. And the Starbucks, to use your point, David, in downtown Huntington, they don't even want to be in downtown Huntington. They want to drive through 2 blocks away.
Yeah.
So they want to leave also. So the evolution is literally, it's every day we see something that we didn't think we were going to see before.
Yeah. In one of our discussions, we were talking about the retailing of medical services. And, I remember before, you go to the doctor and you went to the doctor, whether he was good or bad, because you've gone to him forever. He knows everything about you, your history. And now with these, doc in the boxes where you don't need an appointment. If you don't feel good, you just show up. You don't know who you're getting, but people seem more comfortable with that. Do we see that changing? Like, how is that going to play out?
That's huge, because I can tell you city MDs and similar businesses have been popping up all over Brookhaven. And with the COVID, they were the ones doing the COVID testing. And you had lines for that. Incredible. The other one is all these medical are coming into blood and cancer, for example, have really expanded. So we're seeing that in our town, that medical is becoming a big driver. And they want to be on high volume roads so that they're highly visible. And it's incredible, because I remember growing up and having a doctor. I still have a local doctor in my town, but many people are very mobile. Now, during COVID, with our employees, to check on our employees, and many of them worked from home for a while, but then we brought them all back and we're all open now. We hired a firm, Radish, from New York City, and you have to check in with them every single day. And they can do medical evaluations, and telemedicine has become very, very big. So when I tell you that things are changing, I'm incredibly aware of this as someone that was born in the 40s, and looking at the change that has happened in my lifetime. It's incredible. And I know if we don't stay competitive and we don't stay on top of it, we're going to lose our advantage as a township.
Right.
David, you and I were talking about this the other day, and with respect to pre-COVID, COVID, and post-COVID, the trend was well underway pre-COVID to have more outpatient facilities, ambulatory surgery facilities on major roadways or in downtown areas, and to replace the local doctor office with the type of facilities, whether it's a PM Pediatric or Go Health or any of those types of walk-in medical treatments. And all the big health systems are now promoting those and supporting them for a variety of reasons, one of which is the hospitals, the actual hospital facilities are now being devoted more to the sicker patients, and it doesn't make economic sense for someone who, you know, has what they think is a mild illness or whatever is ailing them to go to the emergency room in lieu of the doctor. So these kinds of facilities were well underway pre-COVID. Obviously, during COVID, they were essential to many people because you needed to get a COVID test. You needed to see whether whether you needed treatment, whether you could be treated at home or in the hospital. And I think that's going to just continue. To me, medical services are actually part of the new retail. We're retailing medical services now. That's what's happening. And they're driving, I think, from our experience anyway, a lot of the leasing of spaces, and they're also driving the rental rates in many instances. So I think that's part of the evolving trend that is taking place throughout Long Island.
Yeah, and you get more personal, treatment from all of those. I remember PM Pediatrics, you just mentioned, Michael. They started out here in Syosset about 15 years ago, and I was working with them to source locations. There wasn't any other Doc in the Boxes back then.
Right.
And they had a great business model. They're in 10 states now. And, another example, my local doctor just now got purchased by one of the major health systems here. I'm not going to mention which one because this isn't a positive comment. But they called me about something with my appointment. I tried to call them back. I was like on the phone for 20 minutes going through menus. And finally, I just gave up and waited for them to call me again. And, told them it's like, you got this, dial 911, we're located here. It's like, I don't want to hear all this stuff. I'm trying to talk to a person. Is there a phone number I can actually just call, and speak with you? So there is going to be sort of like a reshuffling, I think, with a lot of these things.
Definitely. I think you bring up customer service, which is what it's all about. And we've also had instances in general for retailing of goods where now the local retailers, and some of whom we've had direct experience with, are seeing how they can use technology, whether it's Instagram or online buying, virtual try-on rooms, viewing inventory and stock from home and then picking it out in person or having it delivered from the brick and mortar store. So that's changing a lot. But going back to the medical, it's not going to be just the walk-in doctor. I think there'll be more and more of the ambulatory type surgery facilities where simple or what used to be complex, but now are thankfully more simple procedures can be done outpatient at the convenience of a locally situated office compared to going into the hospital itself.
Right.
So that's a trend, I think, throughout Long Island.
Right. So, Dave Levitin, just while we're on the medical into the retail, I've done a couple of office deals in retail centers and medical ones as well. And you run into issues, right? Because a retail landlord doesn't think like an office or a medical landlord. The leases are different. The lenders are different, right? Talk about
Everything's different.
talk about what. So when you have a requirement that you're looking to source it in a retail center, just talk about what that process is. You know, it's also a municipal process. Certain retail excludes, other uses. Talk about that, and also talk a little bit about the benefit that you see to the center of a medical user being there.
So I think as the panel discussed, pre-COVID, medical was starting to expand, and the business model from hospitals were to get feelers out into the community so that they can fill beds. COVID came along and accelerated that, but in addition to that, freed up real estate that was not really available to the medical community. And if you really think about it, what Michael just said, medical and retail is kind of the same thing. You have to be people friendly. You're there, you need good access, you need good parking, you need good visibility. So retail really does lend itself very well for medical, but there's a disconnect between how retail has evolved and how leases are set up versus what medical is typically used to. We all know that, most retail are triple net leases. The landlord basically says, here you go, here's a blank spot, it's a warm box, go build it out. Medical requires a tremendous amount of infrastructure and installation, and traditionally the landlords contribute to that in a normal office setting. But when you get into a retail setting, the retail lender or the landlord isn't willing to do that or not set up to do that. So there's a little bit of a learning curve on both sides to try to manage that. And you also mentioned, which is a big problem, not a problem, but something you need to overcome. Retailers traditionally like other retailers, and now they need to be a learning curve that it's actually having a medical tenant, especially a large medical office building like a ambulatory where you walk in and you get continuation of care. There's radiology, dermatology, orthopedic, all under one roof. People come into the center, they drop their dad off who has a 2-hour procedure, they walk into the adjacent stores, they're buying things. So there's a tremendous amount of synergy, and I believe people are starting to understand that now better than ever before. I know that 4 years ago when we tried doing deals in retail centers, it took a long time. Today, I'm getting calls all the time. Hey, I have this store. Who do you have? Who can you bring in? So I think that change has happened, and I believe it's going to continue to happen because I believe retail medical is one of the drivers on Long Island, and retail just fits perfectly for them.
All right, good.
Another thing I think it was worth mentioning in terms of the evolution, like retail is evolving into industrial space, and it's really, the industrial market is so hot, and the main drivers of retail are the retailers. So Home Depot took a big space in Hicksville, 200,000 feet to do same day or next day delivery. Amazon, every time you open any single business paper, Amazon's moving to this location or that location. It's just nonstop. It's driving the stock of industrial real estate through the roof, and the demand is all retail based, even though it's industrial real estate. What is amazing to me, so when we started doing big box in the early 90s into the 2000s, the retailers didn't really understand Long Island as a location. It was a dead end, and then it was hard to get entitlements, and it was like just cumbersome. Real estate was expensive, taxes were expensive, personnel was expensive, electric was expensive, and there were all the reasons not to come in and enter this market. It was an island and all sorts of problems. But every time we introduced a new store and a new location to a market, to a tenant that didn't have any Long Island presence, they couldn't get enough of it. And they wanted to expand and do more and more locations here because we have a great workforce, we're very dense, and it's a well-off community with lots of shopping. So what's happening in the industrial market is the same explosion that happened. They're putting their foot sticking their toe in the water and realizing they need more and more locations because we're dense, well off, and we're all shoppers here. You know, that's the market.
Yeah, no, there's clear benefits. I know if I go to Home Depot and I'm buying, you know, the Scotch 4-bag, 4-season thing, you know, the pre-emergent, all those things. I'd rather order it online, drive over there, sit out in front with my hatch open, let somebody come, put it in my trunk. I drive away. I never had to get out of the car. So I do hope stuff like that stays. So I want to move us now to successes that we're seeing. And someone mentioned Kohl's, that they're doing Amazon returns. Who was that I was talking?
And you and I discussed that. Yeah.
So that seems like a brilliant, you know, if you want some success, attach your carriage to the train that's running the fastest, right?
Exactly right.
So
So Kohl's made a deal with Amazon to do returns in their stores, and they set up this little return kiosk in the back of the store, so customers would have to walk through a Kohl's location who probably never went to Kohl's or didn't go often. And it's honestly, it's brilliant. You have these people in the store and, well, we're in Kohl's, let's see what they have at least. And it's working. We're going to find out how well it works in Oceanside after they build an Amazon grocery store right next to Kohl's. And then we'll see what happens to that model. But for now, it's a good plan. I give them credit for it.
do we have any other examples of innovative retailers? Not necessarily has to be connected to Amazon, but benefiting from some of these other thoughts?
Well, I'll give you one, and it's a chain I happen to do their work for. So Chick-fil-A, you guys all know, obviously doing very well during the pandemic. Everybody's going there. The stores are not open for in-building dining, but they're doing pickup in the parking lots with remote apps. And they seem to have figured out how to get people in and out of what are seemingly ridiculous long lines pretty efficiently. And volumes are spectacular at this point. So I think they're one of the retailers that's figured it out. I think there are a lot of other fast food guys have done a good job with it, but I think they happen to be the best at it. The merchants, they're all doing pickup outside, like you said, Home Depot, you could go there, you could, pick up stuff and they'll drop it in your car. The grocery stores are doing the same thing. I think there's a lot of that that's actually good and people like it. Kimco with their centers has set up pickup literally around the shopping centers for retailers. I think that's the sort of evolution that's here to stay. We'll never see that go away. So,
It's funny you mentioned Chick-fil-A. So, Supervisor, you might have the same problem. So I'm on the Huntington Planning Board, and where you have for a Starbucks or drive-through Dunkin' Donuts or drive-through any fast food, I forgot what the ratio is, but typically it's like 10 cars. So this is an example where you need to have enough stacking for like 25 cars behind the Chick-fil-A. But yeah, the market's responding, municipalities are responding.
And we have a huge stacking, and we do have a Chick-fil-A on 347 in Port Jefferson. And this town, we had some people come in and complain about the politics of whoever owns Chick-fil-A. We didn't pay any mind to that. We knew it was a successful company. It closes on Sunday. I've eaten there from time to time. When they had in house dining, you go, you order, someone brings you your thing. So the line is constantly moving. And then the same thing, we had a large double line, stacking line that we designed. And although it's always packed, it moves.
I think we should bring back the old Jack in the Box with the deep fried tacos.
I'm in for that.
So here's a concept, and I'd like all of you to weigh in on this. So selectively demalling, all right? So I'm going to give you one example because we were involved in the sale of it. So Broadway Mall in Hicksville, Cushman sold, I don't know, 5 years ago for $100 a foot. Malls go for like $400 a foot. Broadway Mall was an outdoor mall, you know, closed up. They've lost some major retailers there. And it's like a quarter mile to the train station. So Hicksville train station is a major train station. It seems like a perfect opportunity to do sort of like a Meisner Park down in Boca or City Place down in Palm Beach, West Palm Beach, where, and I know every time a concept like that comes up on the island, it gets squashed with 1 million people coming down to the town board meeting not wanting it. But do we think, any of us think that that's something where you're mixing the retail near transit, you know, with some medical, office services, restaurants, entertainment? Is that something that Long Island will ever be ready for?
I think it's ready for it in the right location, with the right property, with a property like the Broadway Mall that was boarded up for a long time. I mean, we're even looking at some of our malls and we're saying, look, we consider housing in those malls to replace the retail that's no longer there. Even a micro housing for small apartments,
Right.
like 600 square feet, 500 square feet, apartments where you can have and attract young people and do something like that. I think the government has to be far more willing to create public spaces where you allow housing in formal retail locations. So there's an attraction there of a public space.
Right. You know, there needs to be a lot of forward vision with redoing. Like right now we're saying, okay, redeveloping, repurposing. You know, a lot of the TODs, they were knocking down buildings that were 70 years old, you know, low ceiling, antiquated. You're able to pick them up rather cheaply and put up residential. It made sense. But, you know, the real plan that the rest of the country is using is they're giving higher density and higher height to certain buildings, but having open space, parks, you know,
Public spaces that
yeah,
really
park-
government has to get involved in creating public spaces
right.
that create attractions to higher density housing. If
Yeah.
they're put together, someone will say, yeah, I can live there because I can go down, take the elevator down, and I'm right out in a park. There's basketball court, there's this, there's that. There's a whole host of other things.
Well, Supervisor, I'm impressed that you have that viewpoint, because I personally believe that's a plus, and that's something that Long Island is not serving at all right now.
David, I think that, as I was saying earlier, this is something that you mentioned Florida, but it's also a trend in other areas of the country.
Right.
A lot of the Midwestern communities are looking at this, and everyone has to be able to sit back and re-examine and be creative. It's not for every location, for sure, but in the appropriate places, it can be extremely dynamic. And again, this always comes down to the question which Supervisor mentioned is, what is the balance? How many units? What is the return going to be on the investment? What does the developer need to get? And what's fair for the developer to get and not overburden the community? And of course, all those things tend to tie in with having the proper infrastructure in place for it, which is a big push now from the federal government. Maybe funds are going to come to Long Island, but in many areas, sewers, we have to consider putting sewers in many places instead of septic. That will help a lot. We need road improvements. When these types of projects are built, should the developer be making contributions toward infrastructure improvement to offset, the cost to the community? And those are all very big factors. And I think they also get factored into, you know, what is the lease price? What is the purchase price? What is the return on investment? And I think if we're all creative, we're going to have much different development in the future than we've had in the past.
Right.
Well, I would
David,
say
I
to
want
this
to-
organization, to developers in general, first, maybe because I'm from Suffolk and we don't have a lot of sewers out here.
Hmm.
Sewers. Areas that are not sewered, sewers. Secondly, I would say to the developers, electrification. I live in a county where electrification stops on the Montauk branch at Babylon, where it stops on the main branch at Ronkonkoma, where it stops on the northern branch at Huntington. We, in most of Suffolk, rely on diesel. That's a 19th century technology. I'm talking about a 20th century technology, electrification, while other parts of this country and world are speaking about high-speed rail. It's incredible that we are so far behind. So I would say sewers, rail, and then roads. And roads, because the roads where there's not enough money to maintain them, and if you leave it to the tax base, it's a mistake. It's a mistake to leave it to the tax base. And then changing our fundamental taxing structure where we move away from simply taxing properties to possibly taxing income for education. School taxes being our highest level, and it burdens people. So if you did any of those things, I think you'd see a real change in how this future developed on Long Island.
Stephen, you had a comment.
Yeah, I want to go back to your Broadway Mall comment from a couple of minutes ago. So across the street from the Broadway Mall, the Sears project is going to be their Meisner Park version. I guess we're going to see if it works. There's a test case coming for us. And the supervisor, you're right, we need electric trains, but I think the railroad might have actually figured out it's time to change the batteries. Why bother pulling electric all the way around? So
Yeah.
the technology is there for it. They use it in China and Japan and wherever else. I don't know why we can't buy it.
Absolutely. And the battery idea was a great idea. I was a lot of things before I became supervisor. I was a legislator in the 80s. I was county clerk for 16 years. And then I was a legislator representing the East End. And after Riverhead, that would be a perfect place to run a battery train from Riverhead to Greenport where the line ends.
Yeah.
So there are so many things. But you know what? We need someone to grab by the reins and lead. And I hope we get some share of this federal money.
Steve, I thought the Sears thing got put on hold in
Some
Hicksville.
of the tenants have been put on hold. We'll see what's going to really happen to it. I
Okay.
don't think any of us know yet.
Okay.
They got deep pockets. It's not like they don't have the money to do it.
Yeah.
For all the landlords out there, for residential landlords, the town, our town, and every town is probably getting money. We gave it to the state, so they'll administer it to pay landlords and tenants for those issues out there, the rental assistance bill that's out there. So if anyone has residential, give me a call if they're in Brookhaven town, and we'll make sure we funnel money to you.
All right, great. Brad, I think you mentioned to me on the phone that one of the solutions is for the retailers to become more omni-channel, right? Was that the conversation you and I had?
Yes, 100%.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, it wasn't that long ago that people thought Best Buy, for instance, was going out of business and it was a dead, concept. But they adapted and they made their products available for pickup. And now, Best Buy is thriving. They're doing terrifically well. So you order it online and pick it up in the store, or you order it online and have it delivered, or you go into the store and the store becomes more of a showroom. So, similarly, Bed Bath & Beyond has done a real transformation. They hired a CEO that has a background in this omni-channel. They've gotten rid of a ton of SKUs. They made the stores a lot less congested, and they had to change their model to make it, more more productive because they have their higher end stuff, the Harmon drugs that are all selling well. Target has done the same thing. Target, all these essential retailers, and Target being one of them, is thriving and growing. And they're also Target is adapting and changing their footprint to be smaller footprints. They don't need the 150,000 square foot box because they've located those all over the place. And especially through the pandemic, they were filling in spaces where smaller retailers were not surviving. Target's come in and put in a 15 or a 20,000 square foot box, and they're able to, survive off of that network that they build online, where you can, go to the store and pick it up or shop. So, again, it's you need to evolve to keep the traffic coming in, and the ones that are, able to foot the bill or to think forward and adopt that technology are the ones that are doing well.
So let's talk about success of some downtowns while others are don't appear to be successful. Oyster Bay has been late to the party with transit-oriented development and some of the other more progressive types of development. And I mean, maybe that'll give them a long time edge because they could see what's worked, what didn't work. But I live between Huntington Village and downtown Oyster Bay, Bay Village, and we go to Oyster Bay when we want to just go in and park right in front of the restaurant. They have some great restaurants there. It's much quieter, few people. And, I think maybe part of it is Oyster Bay wants to maintain the culture of what it's been for the past 100 years and maintain the neighborhood, where a Huntington Village is more of a city center, for a suburban market. Is what's some, or if you contrast Northport downtown, is similar to Port Jeff. They're very robust during the summer, less so in the winter. What's the formula for a successful, downtown? Anybody
I think having a decent multifamily housing. I'll give you a successful downtown. It's a village in my town. It's called Patchogue.
Mm-hmm.
And that village, if you went there 15, 20 years ago, you thought it was dying because many of the large stores had pulled out and they didn't have the traffic. And the mayor, Paul Pontieri, a very forward-thinking guy, an old guy, but a very forward-thinking guy, decided, let's do retail. And let's bring it back by building housing. And he allowed a lot of multifamily housing. He allowed, I thought it was 1 story too many, but 5 stories in downtown Patchogue. And then the outside of the village, he allowed a lot of condos and multifamily developments come in. That has spurred development. And they have sewers in Patchogue. Restaurants propped up, bars popped up, other ancillary things related to that popped up. They have a theater that before the pandemic was doing very well. So all of those things added to the ambiance, and Patchogue, I believe, is a success story.
David, supervisors,
It's not enough parking, by the way. Talking about parking, you can't park near some of these restaurants.
the supervisor is completely right about Patchogue. I think another really good example, at least to me, it's probably the best one, is Farmingdale. They've done a spectacular job.
Yeah.
They let development, do some mid-rise residential there, which obviously brings some people in who can eat at the restaurants and the rest of it. And then there are places that have done nothing, like downtown Valley Stream, which probably should be encouraging the same sort of development or even bigger development than Farmingdale's done, to revitalize their downtown. They're blocks from the train. They've got they've got highways nearby. They've got all the things everybody wants, except they haven't spent any money. So,
at 4 p.m., I'm going to be in Patchogue. I live in Cold Spring Harbor, so Patchogue's not close for me.
Right.
But it's the only Carl Amer butcher in Nassau, Suffolk County.
Yeah. On Ocean Avenue, South Ocean Avenue.
Yeah, I'm going there to pick up an order for here. But yeah, Patchogue, Patchogue has been, look, it was a pinnacle, like 50, 70 years ago, right? So sort of
Yes,
like
it
the
was.
gateway. It was sort of like a major gateway to the east side of the island. And then it ran into some hard times and a lot of things, that needed work. But now it's a place to go. You got theater, restaurant. I mean, it's the whole shebang. I mean, that's really the poster child, for repurposing and sort of reinventing an area. And yeah, residential is a big component of that. New disposable income. The other thing is the people that typically are living in the apartments, either double income, remember double income, no kids, the dinks, where they spend 100% of their paycheck every week, in the community. That's what you need to sort of make a change over there. So we're gonna move into to this last mile concept. So just sort of for reference, last mile is 245 years old. It's not a new concept. The first last mile in the United States, we call the post office. So they're in every community. They started 245 years ago. So what we're seeing, originally these top online were actually using the post office for last mile. Now they're coming up with their own things. And as Brad was saying, some of the biggest industrial users right now are actually retail type companies. So that's sort of putting last mile in neighborhoods similar to post office, that sort of challenges zoning. So Supervisor, can you talk about that a little bit? Because they want to be, close to the residential, and that's where you probably have the most sensitive zoning.
Well, not really. We have industrial parks. They just rented a 110,000 square foot warehouse, which we're making work for them. And it's off William Floyd Parkway. And yes, there's housing on the other side of the tracks and all around there, but this is right off the expressway at exit 68. They're at the end there. They hit 110,000 square foot. We helped them because they didn't have enough parking for all their vehicles, for all the trucks that they have. We obviously have an airport nearby, Brookhaven Airport, and there's Dowling, former Dowling College. We've allowed them to store their trucks off space, which is about 1.5 miles away, and it works for them because they were able to get. So every morning they come from Dowling to get the trucks, the drivers drive into the warehouse, pick it up, and then spread out. So it does work for them. We also have a UPS headquarters here, right down the road from where I am in Farmingdale. So it does work. We are about to build a new industrial park for the town. We have a landfill that we're closing, and next door we have 110 acres in which we're going to convert to an industrial park, which is right off Sunrise Highway, right off Yaphank Avenue, which is the shortest distance between Sunrise and the expressway, and right at exit, I guess at 67 there of the expressway, and right on Horseblack Road. So we're going to open that up as well. And that's near a lot of housing. People forget that Brookhaven is the largest town geographically in the state. And we're the second largest with population with 500,000 people. So we're a tremendous market. I have to say, I think our growth days are over, thank God, because then we can plan a little bit more carefully, because I can tell you in the 80s and 90s, there was one development after another going up. And we think more carefully about what development should look like and how the town should proceed, not only now, in 10 and 20 and 30 years from now. And it's very important. So we have locations for these last mile and locations that are very close to residential so they can serve these areas. I fully expect that either Amazon or someone else is going to be knocking on our door about this new industrial park that we're building off Horseblack Road and Yaphank Avenue.
Right. And it's bringing.
I was going to say that the last mile concept, the logistics of supporting, the commercial development, retail development, today you can't have successful commercial and retail development without the right logistics in place. And when the government, like the supervisor is explaining in Brookhaven, can work with the development industry to provide the logistical areas to support the commerce, everybody benefits. The jobs get created, the stores can be rented, and everything now goes hand in hand. There's no separation between the infrastructure and the logistical support. And that's what I think we have to really key in on in the next few years.
Yeah. You know, this change for the retailers taking industrial space has brought a lot of fresh cash into the region. Brad, you were mentioning a site I sold. It was a Winters Brothers site that went to a company called Lincoln Equities out of New Jersey that built a 200,000 square foot building and leased it to Home Depot. That's fresh cash from an outside developer. Harts Mountain, another developer, bought the Newsday site, looking at a couple of other sites. You know, they own 40 million square feet. That's fresh cash coming in. And supervisor, you're mentioning the Dowling Brookhaven site. That's the 555 companies, which is also buying the EPCAL site. You know, so that's another hundreds of millions of dollars of fresh cash coming into, you know, coming into this region. So that's pretty significant. So here's a question that I've gotten from a number of people is with COVID, there's been a lot of remote permit applications, supervisor, you know, for building permits and other Zoom planning, zoning, town boards. It seems like a lot of people would like to see that continue. Is there any plans to have that continue in some
We
capacity?
fully intend to continue that. We are looking to convert more of our operations to online, particularly the permitting. We do our solar permits online. Most of the permits can be applied for online. We're looking to convert everything to online because I think that makes sense and it moves things forward. The one thing that we are pushing for is self-certification, like New York City, where you can have an architect or an engineer certify some of the work that is being done, and you don't have to go and get it approved at the local municipality if it's self-certified. They do this in New York City, and I think that would move real estate a lot better because time is money. Time is money. When I was county clerk, and that was a long time ago, I was county clerk for 16 years. What I wanted to do is do electronic recording of deeds and mortgages because I knew if we did that, we would improve the liquidity in real estate. Because why is real estate more of a fixed asset? Because it's difficult to transfer.
Yeah.
If you can file things electronically, you can speed up that transfer and you can improve the liquidity in real estate. The same concept is true here in the town. If we can get the permitting systems and some of the people that we have in our civil service to move faster. And that's why I support self-certification. If we can move things faster, time is money.
Well, I got to tell you, if you weren't running for a bigger position, you should now.
I'm getting ready.
Yeah, you got our vote.
I'm getting ready to retire.
You
I
say,
enjoy
well,
what I do, but at some point, I'm 74. I would like to retire somewhere in the future. So I'm here for 2.5 more years. If you guys knock on my door, I will be there to help you. And I will give you the personal service. I believe in my town. I've lived here for 40 some odd years. And I want to make sure when I leave it in good hands. And we have good people investing in our town because I know what it takes to make a buck. And I know what it takes to invest a buck.
Right.
I don't want to see people walk away and get burned. And I've seen that happen in this business too often.
All right, good. All right, so
Listen, thank you for having me, and I appreciate it. And you and your members have a standing invitation if they want to talk about development I'm happy to sit down with you and give them my personal attention as well as my planning director, my planning staff.
Good. Well, thank you very much.
Thank
So
you for having me. I'm going to say goodbye because I've got to run to another meeting, but
All right.
thank you.
All right. Go ahead. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. So we're going to move to some questions from our viewers. We are exactly on time, 12:15. So one of them is communication to stakeholders, when they're making these changes, to sort of better educate the public so they're not coming out in droves opposing something. Anybody have any ideas on that?
You mean, David, you mean in terms of projects and
Yeah.
communicating with the public online, so to speak?
Well, I
Or-
mean, however you do it. So one thing that I've experienced, so I do a lot of land deals, a lot of development deals, and I find that there's a small vocal group that are against things, but they become a source of information. And if the municipality doesn't take a leading role, because they're viewed as sort of being neutral, the developer, it's tough for him to say, hey, this is what the facts are, because he's the big fat developer making all this money. So what we've done is we've created, as brokers, we've created our own Facebook page and just, put up facts about things, sourcing everything that we put up so people can fact check us just by clicking on something within the text, posting responses to some of the concerns. So Michael, when you're representing clients, I mean, I know some more and more of them are hiring PR people or PR companies to help them through this process. But what has this group seen work? So, this is sort of like best practices here we're talking about a little bit.
Well, certainly community outreach and meetings with local civic groups were always part of a development process for any project that was in the least bit controversial. It's more challenging now, frankly, because people have the online chat rooms, online petitions that get filled out even before the facts about the application are known. And different community groups that have their own Facebook or other types of pages. So that's a big challenge, and it absolutely requires meeting it with your own messaging to the community through all those platforms. And as you say, David, getting the real facts out. It's so easy to allow partial information to be disseminated. So it's a challenge. And the online Zoom meetings, on the one hand, we found actually brings about more community involvement than the in-person meetings.
Right.
And actually, you come up with some good ideas and suggestions through that. On the other hand, it is a challenge, especially for the decision makers, because they're confronted with so many opinions in such a short time frame that you have to weed through everything and be very discreet with it. So it's going to be an area of concern for many years now. Now that the genie's out of the box, so to speak, and
Yeah.
we're doing things like this, it's not going to end.
So we were involved in a building on Broad Hollow Road that was an industrial building, and they sort of melded retail with office. So it's a 200,000 square foot building, and it has a 35,000 square foot gym. It's a separate operator. It's got a swim center in there as well. It's got pickleball. It's got golf simulator. And then it has about 100,000 square feet of office space. And there's two restaurants. There was one full service restaurant with a bar, and then a smaller, sort of like grab and go salad, soup, sandwiches, or whatever. They had pretty big common areas David Leviton, it's 515 Broad Hollow Road, but they were sort of mixing that experiential concept with office space. And when we started marketing it, and we signed 4 leases last year during COVID, where everybody was on a freeze. When we originally we're thinking it would be good for, these executive, suite type spaces, the millennial concept where, and what we wound up getting was a corporate headquarters, accounting firm, there was a law firm, and they were like, well, look, the accounting firm, there's 4 times a year where we're inundated and working 16 hours a day. If we have a gym, swim, golf, or whatever, we get to have a break. But so my question is, and maybe Leviton, this is more towards you. You think we're going to see more of these sort of like multi-use experiential centers where, because if we got companies coming from the city, you walk out of the city, you've got 10 restaurants, gyms, you got everything right outside the door. It's tough for them to come out here. You got to get in your car to go anywhere. So Dave, what's your opinion?
I think that these larger buildings are going to need to do that to survive. I think that who they're trying to go after want the experience, want to be able to have a restaurant in the building, want to be able to have a gym in the building. Exactly like you said, it's difficult on Long Island. You have to get in your car, you have to drive. It's a half hour. You're all in one building. It gives you options. It's something that you can then use for your attracting employees because you have a nicer place where they come to work. So I definitely think real estate needs to go towards that model. And quite frankly, if you look at retail, you have a large block, it's already built in. So you could take a nice big chunk of space in a retail center and you already have your restaurants, you already have possibly some, swimming areas and things like that. So I think that's an evolution that you will see more and more of.
Yeah. I think the next example might be Station Square in Ronkonkoma, where you have the train station and airport, right? Like 5 minutes away. And then all this multi-use thing. So I want to thank all of you for spending your Thursday morning here with us. This is a very complex, topic, and I'm sure we can spend another couple of hours talking about it. But thank you so much for your expertise and your time. And at this point, I'd like to hand it back to CIBS President Dan Weiner.
Thanks, Dave. I appreciate it. We do. I don't know if we have time, Christine. We have a couple of more questions. Did we get through those? I don't want to leave anybody.
No, we haven't touched upon them.
Okay.
The first one is to Supervisor Romaine. Unfortunately, he left. Along Michael San's point, have you looked outside of Long Island to other regions for zoning and land use ideas and inspiration to apply to Brookhaven? He's not here, but maybe someone else can pick up the ball on that question. Mr. Panetta?
Well, yeah, that Mr. Supervisor left on that one, so that's why I didn't say that one. Look, I think that here's one thing I can say. Long Island has real downtowns. They're not made to fit into a brand new development, and that's part of the charm of Long Island. Is we've got history, we've got culture, we have a lot here, and we're just adding to it, building around it, and which really exemplifies the strength of what we have. If you do go to Virginia, Carolinas, it's like they're making a brand new downtown. It doesn't have all of the charm and desirability that we have here. One thing that other areas are showing is that, and again, Supervisor Romaine was a breath of fresh air to me, even though I know him to be this way. But other areas are a lot more flexible on what you can do, the density, how high you can go, different architectural, groups and styling, but they do have an advantage. There's big blocks of land where here, I was saying before, if you go to a downtown, let's say Hicksville, you could buy some 70-year-old buildings and put up an apartment building. But but you can't plan everything around it because people own stuff and there's operating businesses. In other areas, and I mentioned too in Florida, the Meisner Park and the City Place was, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago, brand new. You could design the whole piece, which includes public areas, performing areas, for concerts and stuff and singing. So there are things that we could learn from the outside, even the self-certification, where you don't have to look any further than the Queens, Brooklyn, Nassau County line to see what self-certification can do to speed things up. So yeah, there's definitely things that help us, and I think the developers, the brokers understand it, and the elected officials are now using that, as well.
Hey, David,
Yeah.
since you brought up City Place, that one's close to my heart since I live about 2 blocks from there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in its 20 years. It's been in foreclosure 2 or 3 times in the 20 years. It's now undergoing a new plan. Macy's was the anchor downtown. They built literally the whole city around this complex. All the downtown retailers literally are gone. So now they were converting it to office space. Then the office space they didn't need because there weren't enough people. Then the pandemic hit and everybody wanted to move to Florida and open up an office. So now there's office stuff going on. So that the evolution of retail, if you wanted to pick one place as sort of a model, it would be that, because everything that they did right in the first place, then it was all wrong. Now it's right again.
Right.
It's all by accident. So
Yeah.
and we're going to see that here also.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, I just want to say thank you, everybody, for your time. When I'm speaking for myself, I had a lot of really exciting conversations with clients recently, and they all want to talk about retail. And I think that the theme has turned recently from uncertainty to kind of optimism. And, I, for one, am really excited about Long Island and our retail future. And it's conversations like this that really, help that cause, especially Supervisor Romaine's input. We need more, more politicians like him on Long Island. So I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you very, very much. Thank you, Christine, again, for helping us put this on, and have a great day, everybody.
Thank
All right.
Thank you so much. Take
Thank
care.
you.